Good morning. My name is Michael Larson. I'm a volunteer here at the Well, just honored to be able to share a little bit about what I think God has put on my heart this morning. As we begin, it's interesting. I get a news update every single morning, and sometimes that news update is just I consume it and have no reaction. Sometimes it brings anxiety or chaos. And I think that however we are living in the world today, chaos and anxiety can be a frequent thing. So I just want to pray for peace over us, over me, over you all this morning. Would you just join me? God, there's so much going on in the world all the time. And we know and we admit, even if we're just trying to persuade ourselves this morning, that it is true that you are in complete control. And in a world that feels volatile and uncertain and ambiguous, you know all of these things. You know our heart, and you have plans that are good for us. So I just pray that you would bring a sense of peace on our heart this morning. Help us to hear very specifically what it is that you have for us today. We love you. In your name, amen. I think there's probably no more powerful tool in kind of communicating than a metaphor. It says something by being something else. Jesus was actually a master of metaphor and story and parable. And today we're going to kick off with one of our own. We're going to see this photo of what is a kingfisher. Beautiful bird here. What this bird is doing right now, it isn't some special occasion. It isn't for show. This is what it does. This is how it looks without trying. And the beauty we see in it comes from how purely it represents itself to the world as it was created to be. There's actually a beautiful poem written about this bird. Gerard Manley Hopkins writes this: "As kingfishers catch fire, dragonflies draw flame. As tumbled over rim in roundy wells, stones ring. Like each tucked string tells, each hung bell's bow swung, finds tongue to fling out broad its name. Each mortal thing does one thing and the same, deals out that being indoors each one dwells. Selves goes itself, myself it speaks and spells, crying what I do is me, for that I came. I say more, the just man justices, keeps grace that keeps all his goings graces, acts in God's eye what in God's eye he is, Christ. For Christ plays in 10,000 places, lovely in limbs and lovely in eyes not his, to the Father through the features of men's faces." Now, maybe you want to read that through a couple of times to get the whole meaning, but the idea here is this isn't a poem about how we just need to be ourselves. It's not intended to provide excuses for bad behavior. Sometimes we in culture define authenticity as just this pure acceptance of imperfection, almost an embracing of impassivity or a lack of growth in us. There's this thought that if we seek to change, we're betraying our true selves. This isn't that. One of my kind of spiritual heroes is Eugene Peterson, and he has a note about this poem. He says, Hopkins, the author, piles up a dazzling assemblage of images to fix our attention on this sense of rightness, of wholeness that comes together when we realize the utter congruence between what a thing is and what it does. Kingfisher and dragonfly catching and reflecting sun brightness, a stone tumbling over the rim of a well, a plucked violin string, the clapper of a bell sounding. What happens and the way it happens are seamless. I crave to be the kingfisher. I think humanity craves to live into our unique contribution to this world, to become who we were designed to become, full of authenticity and wholeness and integrity. In the words of Peterson, utter congruence. That's an interesting word. It's probably not one that you use very often. Probably the last time you did was maybe in geometry class, but it's at the heart of the life that we're trying to live. It's the way that our souls are created and designed to be. It's a reality in which what happens and the way it happens are the same. When a thing is and what it does are the same. It's where the inside matches the outside. It's when our purpose for living causes us to live a life of purpose. It's a kingfisher catching flame as it flies, and it's a beautiful sight. It's a beautiful life. I think as humans, we often try to be what we aren't. Incongruence almost becomes automatic. This is almost like an unconscious, but this appealing goal, something we are drawn to. We feel uncomfortable in our own skin, so we clothe it to resemble somebody else. We feel afraid that we're going to be discovered, so we dress up ourselves and put on masks. And we begin to sense a friction in our soul. We feel angry, frustrated, discontent. We feel like we're always striving. We feel like we're going to be found out. And it doesn't have to be this way. I want us to pause for a minute and just imagine something. Feel the freedom that comes with no hiding, no faking, no trying, no fearing what others are going to say of you. The freedom that comes in being yourself and only yourself. And there is a way to move toward that sense of peace and congruence. It's not actually found by dismissing others' opinions of you. It's not just found by accepting who you are. It's not actually by working really, really hard to get better. It actually doesn't come from us at all. But that's what we're going to explore a little bit here today. We're in the middle of a series called At the Feet of Jesus, where we're looking at the teachings of Jesus through his biographies. And in the time of Jesus, students literally would have gone to learn from him and sat at his feet, kind of soaking in all that he had to teach them. And we see this phrase in Luke where two sisters are kind of contrasted in their posture towards him. Martha, one sister, is hustling, she's busy, she's prepping for a party. And Mary, we see here in verse 39 of chapter 10 in Luke, her sister Mary sat at the Lord's feet, listening to what he taught. Now Martha complains. She's like, Jesus, help me out. Tell her to get up and get going. But instead, Jesus says there is only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, sitting at my feet, and it is not going to be taken from her. So Mary sat there in that posture and learned, and then she was honored by Jesus. And today, I hope that's where we find ourselves today, in that posture, learning from him. So we'll be in Luke 11. Feel free to turn there. Let me set the scene. So Jesus has just gotten asked to dinner. Okay, there's the host was a member of a religious group, a sect called the Pharisees. Now, this group would have recognized Jesus' authority, his ability to teach, because he was doing it everywhere, but they also would have understood and recognized this conflict that he brought. And they were actually often the target of this very convicting message that he was preaching. So they began to go on the offensive. They were trying to trap him. They wanted to get him to answer in ways that would maybe shift public opinion away from him. They were trying to corner him. And this invite, this dinner, was probably that goal. Before the meal has even begun, it goes a bit sideways. It says, his host was amazed to see that he sat down to eat without first performing the hand-washing ceremony required by Jewish custom. Now, pre-dinner hand-washing in the Larson household is a pretty big deal. We always try to kind of begin our meal holding hands and in prayer. But let me tell you what, the only chance for this to happen without severe drama is that there's like verifiable proof that the person that you're holding hands with has washed their hands. Like if you didn't see them, you didn't hear the water running, you didn't watch them dry their hands, there was no chance you were holding anything but your own fork. But Jesus' hand-washing, in context, was actually even like next level. In first century Jewish culture, this was incredibly critical. It was a ceremony that was a part of their culture. It indicated an obedience to God's law. In fact, really strict Jews would have not just washed before the meal, but between each course. Rabbis were incredibly, deadly serious about that, and that would have been Jesus' role in that day. In fact, a rabbi who once failed to do this was then considered excommunicated from the community. Another one was imprisoned by the Romans, used his ration of water that he got to drink every day for ceremonial cleansing instead of drinking it, and nearly died of thirst. And yet he was regarded as this hero. And here, Jesus doesn't do it. And of course, we know he did it that way. He didn't do it on purpose. He knew it would have caused a stir. He knew it would have raised questions, but he did it so that they would begin to have a very real and obvious metaphor for a conversation that they didn't know they needed to have. And they're amazed, right? They don't even say anything, but they're amazed, and Jesus jumps right in. He says, "You Pharisees are so careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and wickedness." So remember, picture the situation here. Important leaders, beautiful table, food, wine, generosity, influence. And then on your turf, in the midst of your friends, this man convicts you. And he is bold, he is to the point, and they know it. He is totally spot on. Everything he says about you as a Pharisee is true. He isn't applauding their devotion. He's saddened. He is warning them. Inside, you are filthy. He knows. The outside doesn't match the inside. Like a bad avocado, right? We've all been there before. How disappointing is that? Like a teenager's car, in my opinion. Like that drawer in your kitchen, right? Where you just put everything that you don't really know where else to put it, and then you close it and it looks just fine. We get it. We can relate. There's this absence of congruence, and this is true in our souls as well. There are ways that we feel, thoughts that we think, even lies that we believe, that we mask and we hide and we cover to the world around us. Why do we do this? Why do we do this? Why are we so concerned about not letting those parts of us out? I think it's because we're afraid. This past week, this is kind of a silly example, but it's real. So let me be vulnerable for a minute. I was drafting an important email. I do executive coaching, leadership development work, and we just started a pretty massive contract with a new client. And I was setting up a bunch of coaching calls and cohorts and all this stuff. And it was going out to 12 VPs. I was copying the CEO, the founder of my company, the president. I mean, everybody was involved in this. And I got this thing. I polished it up. It felt good. I clicked send, and immediately I realized I had sent it from my personal email address. Now, for most of you, you're like, what's the big deal? It's me, but I'm a perfectionist, and immediately I was like, oh no, how unprofessional. Like I got this pit in my stomach. I was like, can I undo send? No, that window had already closed. And I felt in that moment, it was really interesting. I felt like I had been discovered. Like this thing that I wasn't quite sure if I could do. Now everybody knew that not only couldn't I do it, I couldn't even send an email without screwing it up. And I was uncovered and afraid. In Matthew's biography of Jesus, it says Jesus describes the Pharisees like this. Everything they do is for show. On their arms, they wear extra wide prayer boxes with scripture verses inside. And they wear robes with extra long tassels. And they love to sit at the head table at banquets and in the seats of honor in the synagogues. They love to receive respectful greetings as they walk in the marketplaces and to be called rabbi. In another version, it says everything they do is done for people to see. The Pharisees weren't motivated by holy devotion, but by social survival. Everything they did was for show. It was to be seen. They were more afraid of what people thought of them than what God saw. And that fear caused them to hide. When we're afraid, we hide. We've actually got a long track record of that. Remember way back, Adam and Eve. After eating the fruit, they became afraid, and so they hid. The Pharisees were hiding behind laws and rules and regulations. They had actually boiled down, reduced faith in God to a long list of to-dos. And I think we hide when we're afraid because honestly, hiding works. Here's one of those metaphors that may help. There's a mathematician named Norbert Wiener, and he made a simple but profound observation within the natural world. Creatures with exoskeletons, meaning skeletons outside of their body. A lot of insects are this way, lobsters, crabs, right? They've got all the advantages early in life because they are protected from disaster, external disaster coming in. But at some point, they lose this advantage because they stop developing, they stop growing. Maybe they'll molt and take on a new form, but the growth stops and restarts. There is no memory. They leave their development behind. Those of us with endoskeletons, skeletons inside our body, we're much weaker, we're softer, we're more vulnerable. Think about it. There's nothing more helpless and more fragile than a human baby at birth. And yet, if we make it through those early stages, if we're protected and we grow and develop, we have this incredible capacity for higher forms of consciousness. When we're afraid of people, we hide beneath exoskeletons of our own making. And when we do, we stop growing into the person God created us to be. The Pharisees did this with rules and legalism. I think we do it with a few others. So I'm going to ask you a hard question. What's your exoskeleton? How are you hiding? How are you putting something outside of you to protect yourself from the world? I think first we posture. This is like fake arrogance that hides insecurity. Pharisees did it with positions. They did it, they tried to corner Jesus, and that was kind of a tactic. I think we do it when we feel like fakes, when we feel like imposters. We put on an arrogance that's trying to hide insecurity. We act like we know it all. Maybe that's you. Maybe that's how you show up in the world. Do you know everything? Do you act like you know everything? Second, I think we post. Filters, social media filters are the modern day fig leaf. We post in order to hide, and we are perpetuating the illusion of perfection. Instagram has over 40 filters. TikTok has 200 million videos and growing that use something called the glamour filter to make people look more attractive. 90% of young women edit their photos before posting, and filtered photos get 45% more comments. So the cycle continues because it works. We post the illusion of perfection in order to hide the hurt, and it's hurting us. 94% of participants in a recent study felt pressured to look a certain way on social media. 60% of them were depressed as a result. We are filtered and afraid. I think we also perform. This is an attitude of constant earning, constant trying. As kids, it might be in sports. As we grow older, maybe it's in school or getting degrees or better grades. And as we move into family or career, it's our kids' accomplishments, or it's our projects at work or promotions. Maybe it's just being the most charismatic, throwing the best parties in the neighborhood. We hide behind that show because we're worried we have nothing to show. The Pharisees made these big, over-the-top prayers in synagogues because they wanted to be seen. We perform. And then we also pursue. This is the constant striving. We're constantly looking for more stuff or success, a better job or a better reputation, wealth or influences or title. We're constantly pursuing. So what's your exoskeleton? What are you hiding behind? I think we hide because we're afraid. I think all this hiding is exhausting. As a junior in high school, I got the role of George Gibbs in the play Our Town. And while it wasn't like a real totally out there character, it didn't require a bunch of makeup or me having a different accent or anything like that, being someone else is exhausting. I mean, I remember that. Every rehearsal, I would be tired. Jesus often calls the Pharisees hypocrites. Now, we know what that means today in our culture, but hypocrites is actually a Greek word originally used for play actors. It just meant that someone pretended to be what they weren't for the purpose of telling a story. Many of us do this every single day. We try to cover up our messiness by being someone else. We're telling a story. And in response, Jesus has two things. He warns and he grieves. I think this is such a father response. The Creator is pained over the discontent of us, the created. It isn't just anger, it's a deep grief. Let's read what he says. He starts off, "What sorrow awaits you, Pharisees, for you are careful to tithe even the tiniest income from your herb gardens, but you ignore justice and the love of God. You should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the more important things. What sorrow awaits you, Pharisees, for you love to sit in the seats of honor in the synagogues and receive respectful greetings as you walk in the marketplace. Yes, what sorrow awaits you, for you are like hidden graves in a field. People walk over them without knowing the corruption they are stepping on. What sorrow awaits you." It's this broken heartedness that we would settle for so much less. You know, like most 12-year-old boys, My son loves video games. He loves them so much that while he's playing, there's something, kind of a medical condition that ensues. He loses his ability to hear my voice. It's really strange. I'm sure we probably should get it checked out, but like he'll be playing and I'll be like, hey, it's time to stop, or hey, you're done at 10, and then 10 comes and he's still playing for some reason. Well, natural consequences ensue. Now, I get no pleasure out of taking that privilege away from him. Truly, I want him to reach Unreal rank on Fortnite like Noah, like every other good father would, right? I know it takes hard work and it takes discipline and it takes commitment for him to achieve his goals. And yet there are consequences. There are sorrows that await if he makes the wrong choice. And of course, I joke, but there's something there. I actually hate taking it away from him. I want my kids to enjoy life, and he enjoys video games. I'm disappointed that it's something that I have to do, that I have to take that away from him. But it's a consequence that is both a hard thing and a reality. Jesus is saying to the Pharisees, you are choosing these consequences and what sorrow awaits. I think God sometimes sees us maybe like this pathetic story of an eagle. Once upon a time, a man found an eagle's egg and placed it under a brooding hen. The eaglet hatched with the chickens and grew up to be like them. He clucked and cackled, scratched the earth for worms, flapped his wings, and managed to fly a few feet in the air. Years passed. One day, the eagle, now grown old, saw a magnificent bird above him in the sky. It glided in graceful majesty against the powerful wind with scarcely a movement of its golden wings. Spellbound, the eagle asked, "Who's that?" "That's the king of the birds, the eagle," said his neighbor. "He belongs to the sky. We belong to the earth. We're chickens." So the eagle lived as a chicken, for that's what he thought he was. An eagle living like a chicken. It's so sad. It's living pathetically, not as himself, actually, not even as a good version of a chicken. Some of us are eagles thinking we're chickens, and we're breaking God's heart. We're settling, and he grieves. He is filled with sorrow that we don't see ourselves like he sees us. But he's inviting us into a life of congruence, a life where we are broken and beautiful, we are sinful and saved. Eugene Peterson writes again in Kingfishers Catch Fire. "But what kingfishers and falling stones and chiming bells do without effort requires development on our part, a formation into who we truly are, a becoming in which the means by which we live are congruent with the ends for which we live, same inside and out." I mean, the first sin ever committed by Adam and Eve was that they were trying to be something that they weren't. And with that came the consequence that being our created selves would no longer come without effort, but freedom can come. And freedom comes through forming. This is where there's a little bit of a fork in the road between culture and Christ. Being who you are in this world means being exactly as you are. It's this nod to acceptance, right? The idea just to simply be you. You are perfect, but that actually isn't our reality. The only way for congruence to take hold in us, for us to release the fear that comes with seeking the approval of others, is that we do not accept who we are as we are. Peterson goes on to say this: "But Hopkins' final image is not of us finally achieving what the dragonfly and plucked string do simply because they are determined by biology and physics. His final image is Christ, who lives and acts in us in such ways that our lives express the congruence of inside and outside, this congruence of ends and means. Christ as both the means and the end, playing through our limbs and eyes to the Father through the features of our faces, so that we find ourselves living almost in spite of ourselves the Christ life in the Christ way." Fear of Christ forms us. Despite the fact that the Pharisees were literally face to face with Jesus, they feared those in the world around them. Their behavior reflected that true belief, that the opinions of those around them mattered most. Jesus addresses it, and he says, "Dear friends, don't be afraid of those who want to kill your body. They cannot do any more to you after that. But I'll tell you whom to fear. Fear God, who has the power to kill you and then throw you into hell. Yes, he's the one to fear. We're afraid of the wrong things. We're afraid of the world, but we should fear God. He's got unlimited power over your body and your soul. It just makes sense. It's a rational connection, but it's actually a whole lot more than that. God isn't just like this bully out on the playground who can just crush us at any moment. There's something so much fuller here. In his unlimited power, he gives complete freedom to us to choose. To have a reverent fear of who he is. And when we choose rightly, our fear motivates a formation into someone who looks more like he designed us to look. That leads to congruence. There's a beautiful story from C.S. Lewis. He writes about this in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. The story here is about a boy named Eustace who has turned into a dragon but no longer wants to hold that form anymore, no longer wants to hide behind that. And he chooses to allow the lion to do a deep work in him. This is from his perspective. Then the lion said, but I don't know if it spoke, "You will have to let me undress you." I was afraid of his claws, I can tell you, but I was pretty nearly desperate now, so I just lay flat down on my back and let him do it. The very first tear he made was so deep, I thought it had gone right to my heart. And when he began pulling the skin off, it hurt worse than anything I've ever felt. Well, he peeled the beastly stuff right off, just as I thought I'd done to myself the other 3 times, only they hadn't hurt. And there it was, lying on the grass, only ever so much thicker and darker and more knobbly looking than the others had been. And there I was, as smooth and soft as a peeled switch and smaller than I had been. And then he caught hold of me. I didn't like it very much, for I was tender underneath now that I'd had no skin on, and he threw me into the water. It smarted like anything, but only for a moment. After that, it became perfectly delicious, and as soon as I started swimming and splashing, I found all the pain had gone from my arm, and then I saw why. I'd turned into a boy again. Of course, the lion represents Christ. The boy chose to let him strip it all away and leave himself. Christ will strip it all away if we are willing. He already sees us. There's nothing he doesn't know. Why are we trying to hide? At our absolute worst, most basic, naked, exposed, unimproved selves, he loves us. Jesus says this, "What is the price of 5 sparrows? 2 copper coins? Yet God does not forget a single one of them, and the very hairs on your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid. You're more valuable to God than a whole flock of sparrows. Be afraid, but don't be afraid. Be afraid because I am an all-powerful God, but don't be afraid because of who I am. I remember you. I know you. I value you. You are remembered. God does not forget a single one of them. You are known. The very hairs on your head are all numbered, and you are valued. You're more valuable to God, even unmasked, even without posturing or performing or posting or pursuing. He has defined your worth. And he has said with his very life that you are worth it. We began with a poem, and so we're going to end with one. This one is from psalmist and musician King David. He paints an incredible picture of this intimate, deep knowledge that God has of us. I just encourage you, however you kind of receive this, not from me, but from God, whether you want to close your eyes or put your head down or whatever you want to do, just hear this from him. Oh Lord, you have examined my heart and know everything about me. You know when I sit down or stand up. You know my thoughts even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything I do. You know what I am going to say even before I say it, Lord. You go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing on my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too great for me to understand. I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. If I go up to heaven, you're there. If I go to the grave, you're there. If I ride the wings of the morning, if I dwell by the farthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me. Your strength will support me. I could ask the darkness to hide me. I could ask the posturing, the posting, the performing, the pursuing to hide me, and the light around me to become night. But even in darkness, I cannot hide from you. To you, the night shines as bright as day. Darkness and light are the same to you. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. How precious are your thoughts about me, oh God. They cannot be numbered. I can't even count them. They outnumber the grains of sand. And when I wake up, you are still with me. Let me pray. God, we're blown away that that's your view of us. I don't think we can actually understand that. I don't think we can often accept that without you opening our hearts and allowing that. So over the next few moments, God, as we respond to you at the stations around the auditorium this morning, maybe we light a candle in just a prayer for whatever it is that you are speaking into us. Or maybe we feel like we need to be set free and we need prayer from the prayer partners that are coming up. God, whatever it is, I pray that your prompting in our heart would cause us to obey and that we would have an incredible freedom that comes only from accepting who you have defined us to be. And in that moment, that we would sense the inside matches the outside, that we would have a congruence that provides an incredible freedom